I can't think of a lot of artists who've credibly made the jump from troll and provocateur to one of the best artists of their generation. I think Tyler, the Creator, managed to do that. He's got a new album out today. What makes Tyler, the Creator's new project so fascinating? I'm Alamin Abdul Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Look, I think the best place to start is right here.
Things feel out of order. Look around, I'm not sure. Paranoia, no. Feel it in my aura.
That is Noid from the album Chromakopia. That is a new record from the LA rapper Tyler, the Creator. Look, I can't think of a more fascinating figure in hip-hop right now than Tyler. This was a guy who burst on the scene around 15 years ago with the Odd Future Collective, quickly developed this reputation for being having these violent, really depraved lyrics. A lot of critics sort of pointed out the sexism and the homophobia in those lyrics. They also pointed out the craft in those lyrics. But in the past few years, a kind of very different Tyler started to emerge. One that's a lot more vulnerable in his work, and a lot more daring in these artistic choices that he's making. Rollie Pemberton, a.k.a. Cadence Weapon, is here. Pablo the Don is here, and we got a lot to talk about. Rollie, Pablo, welcome to the show, friends. How's it going?
Hey,
what's good?
Hello. Listen, Pablo, I'm going to start with you. I think back when Tyler was coming out, with Odd Future, he really enjoyed being the provocateur. He really enjoyed making people uncomfortable, being the troll, right? I think people might remember Odd Future were banned in New Zealand in 2014 because they were deemed a threat to the public order. Then a year later, Tyler himself got banned from the UK because of his lyrics. What do you think was fueling his attitude 10 years ago in terms of just occupying this kind of troll kind of figure role?
Honestly, I think it was the first signs of this internet sort of angst that we saw, especially amongst younger Black men. I think he just was an alternative Black guy that didn't see himself represented in society, but they definitely existed in real life. You've definitely run into a Tyler Creator a time or two. Mm-hmm. And I think because of that, he was one of those people who didn't think any PR was bad PR. He was willing to do and say anything to get attention, which a lot of people were doing back then. He just took it to the extra level, the extra extreme. But ultimately, I think it was just immaturity and unsure of how to harness that kind of angsty energy that he had. He was just a kid full of energy, and so were his friends, just doing what they wanted to do to get attention.
I honestly I think of every time I'd watch an interview with Tyler, the Creator, there's this volatility in his physical form that you can't look away from. That was just kind of really fascinating. And it made him constantly kind of in the spotlight. But then something shifted, Rollie. Something shifted. We started to see him as a bit of an auteur, as a bit of one of these really insightful, sort of thoughtful artists. Do you want to talk about when the perception about Tyler, the Creator started to change?
Yeah, I feel like it was right around Flower Boy when that record dropped, and he started being more vulnerable and honest about his sexuality, which was huge in hip hop at the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like before that, he's playing this character, he's being really outrageous, and it was you're not supposed to really take it seriously. Mm-hmm. But then he starts coming out and being really honest about his perspective on things. And then the music is getting richer and jazzier, and we're starting to respect him more as a composer and a producer than just a rapper. And you're starting to see that kind of Neptune's influence come out. I feel like it was right around that time when I started thinking, I was there's something deeper going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's he began to sort of tell us there are layers to the artist who's, aside from the troll and provocateur, which, he used to sort of get attention for so many years. Pablo, let's get into this album, Chromakopia. It's got this incredibly striking visual aesthetic. It's got this incredible album. On the album cover, it's there's this sort of V-shaped haircut situation, and then there's a mask of his own face on top of his own face. When you see this imagery, what's the significance here? What are we working with?
Honestly, the hair, the mask, it's all super interesting, as are all of Tyler's most recent works, the visual covers. But I really, with this album, I wish the whole thing had a visual element component to it, especially because of the use of the mask. In certain music videos where it seems like he's the most braggadocious, when Thought I Was Dead came out, he has no mask on and he's being so honest and upfront. But then when he's on Noid or the very first single, Saint Chroma, he's got the mask on, and it's the most vulnerable moments is when he decides to put put the mask on.
Mm-hmm.
But the most braggadocious out there moments is when he's taking it off. Like, this is like a weird, interesting concept, but I think it's him battling between where the character stops and where Tyler actually begins, which again lends to the fact of he's using his real name. So he's got to make that delineation of where Tyler, the creator, and where Tyler, the person, actually lies.
Pablo, can I just say, you were here yesterday and you're like, Beyonce, where are the visuals? And then you're here today and you're like, Tyler, where are the visuals?
Where are the visuals?
I am sensing a theme in the asks of Pablo the Don here. That's all I'm saying. You know, like there's something. But also, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe how the visuals right now, the visuals that we do have for Tyler, the creator, maybe represent some of these lyrical themes that he's working with on Chromakopia?
Oh. I mean, in Noid, he uses America's Princess, a.k.a. Debris, who is this crazed fan. But I think the most interesting part about that is how her craziness almost turns into like a scary moment for him. Her phone suddenly turns into a loaded weapon, and it seems like it's being used against him. I think those like visual presentations like it are being reflected in such a cool way. But I really think it's really most cool in the name of the album, because chroma is obviously the presence of color, the presence of light, and copia is an abundance. And it's not lost on me that he has his mom narrating the entire time, acting as this kind of guiding light. So she's clearly the abundance of light in his life. And I think him representing that visually and as well as like in the album itself is probably one of the most vulnerable things Tyler has done, because we don't see his mom often. Bonita is not out there like that. So
not at all.
I think he's really working through exactly like where he's trying to go, where he's trying to lead people. But also, like, I think this is kind of the first album where he's so just like vulnerable about what's going on right now in his life.
Can I just say, like, I'm very rarely a, hey, drop all the visuals you can person. But then seeing that video made me go, oh, I'm interested in your conception.
I need a movie.
I need it. I need like the whole thing.
I need your lemonade.
I need this to be lemonade. I need this to be like an entire,
I need it.
from beginning to end, you know, do the work in all this. Okay, I want to play you another song. Take a listen to this.
Always, always, always wear a condom. Don't trust it.
Hey Jane, we got the news and I ain't know what to do. I didn't panic, I was comforting you. Still in shock, but damn, delayed response. Is this really true? If it was bound to happen to me, I'm lucky it's you. Hey Jane, your hair long and your legs long, and we could both relate to the fact that our dad's gone. Couple good qualities on you, you could pass on. You're not dumb and your face good and your hair strong. Look, hey Jane.
From Chromakopia, Tyler, the creator's new record, that is Hey Jane. Rollie, this is the track that does it for you. What's sticking out for you about this song?
Yeah, you know, it's a song that I didn't know that Tyler was capable of, right? Just shows a level of maturity beyond a lot of rappers. Like, if you know hip hop, talking about pregnancy or any kind of women's issues, it's been a struggle.
Do you want to explain the concept a little bit of Hey Jane, because I think it's a really fascinating kind of concept.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so so Tyler, he in the verses he represents himself and his partner discussing an accidental pregnancy, right? And they're having actually a very respectful, measured conversation about this, which is something that you wouldn't really expect in a hip hop track. And especially from Tyler, somebody who's known for being shocking and impish and this wild character. And I feel like a lot of this stuff is very intentional. In fact, he's got his mom's voice throughout the album. He's platforming women in his life. He's having all these women doing features and stuff. It really is showing a level of growth and maturity, and he's like trying to drag hip hop to the future with him.
Yeah, there's something to that evolution, Pablo, right? Like we kind of go from Tyler, the creator, being, I think, reasonably accused of some of the most, sexist lyrics of the early 2010s, to this album, having your mom narrate this thing, having all of these songs like Hey Jane, that is this sort of really sophisticated representation of pregnancy that you don't often get in hip hop, but also the choices of features, as Rollie was just sort of alluding to, right? Like the women that show up on this album, Santigold, Sexy Red, Glorilla, a lot more. What do you make of Tyler, the creator, trying to reckon with his own history here, but not even necessarily doing it explicitly, just doing it in terms of like the creative choices that he's making?
Well, yeah, I think this is what happens when we give people who are truly capable of growing the opportunity to grow, giving them the space and time to learn about who they are, who they want to be in this world, and to really take in everything that's going on and be that person. And I think this is just adding like another wrinkle to his character. And it shows that hey, he made See You Again back in 2017 on Flower Boy, but he's more than capable of pushing that lens further. He can make more music that appeals to women while at the same time staying tapped in with his dominantly male audience. Like he's doing the things that I think a lot of artists want to be doing. He's speaking to men, being open and honest about these conversations, and truthfully, he's being influential about these things. He's one of the first rappers to really tackle this topic of women's reproductive rights in a meaningful, a sensitive, and like considerate way of that woman that's actually involved. And my favorite line in that song is when he says, "Whatever you decide to do, just know I fully support you." And it's just like, yes, like
saying it explicitly.
do that more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell your friends to do that more. And I look at this as like, whoa, to come from where we were in 2010, the dude breaking his foot on the stage at the VMAs because he won an award, to, hey, we need to be more considerate of the women in our lives. And actually, my mom's been my guiding light this entire time to make sure I get to this point is incredible.
Like, I can't emphasize the arc of that enough. The arc of, you know, where Tyler started to where Tyler got to, which is this like really compelling, really thoughtful, really introspective place that I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful to have this album. I've been spending a lot of time with this album, particularly because I'm thinking about Tyler's history here, because I think we're sometimes a little too easy, a little too quick to say, I've heard enough songs to know what box I should put that artist in. And sometimes the evolution is incredibly worth it, you know, in terms of like where that journey ends up. It is worth noting, though, even though he's like now this sort of more respected artist, we're talking about him in this light, he's still that guy who every once in a while would like to sort of court some controversy. So last week, Tyler, the Creator, bumped Taylor Swift out of the top spot on Spotify's top artist chart. And in response, some Swifties started sort of bringing back these, let's say, more problematic elements of Tyler's history in an attempt to have him canceled. And it's not really going to work, but this is what Tyler had to say about that at a performance last Friday.
I got Swifties all mad at me with their racist ass. Bringing up old lyrics. Go listen to Tron Cat. I don't give a They gonna bring out the old me.
They gonna bring out the old me, Rollie. What do you make of that? What do you make of that response?
No, I think it's defiant, and I think it's fair for him to be that way because honestly, he's done the work. He is showing you how much he's matured and changed over time, that he outgrew the antics. What more can he do but just keep it moving?
Yeah, there's the defiance is comfortable and I think like earned, because if you have kind of showed up and saying like, look at all the evidence that I've given you that I'm a different person than I was 10 years ago, and people are like, no, but I'm going to only judge the version of you that was here 10 years ago. I think it's fair to say, well, there's nothing more for us to talk about. There's nothing more for us to even try to agree on. Pablo, let's talk about Chromakopia and where it sort of ranks in the modern canon of Tyler, the Creator, would you say?
Yeah, I think this is his best project. I think anybody who's really sat with the album, I think anyone who's really taken the time to, you know, try to dissect some of the lyrics, I think they're ranking this as his best album. It's not lost on me that this album is also greatly inspired by Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers by Kendrick Lamar. He's talked about it famously. And I think that this is his kind of Mr. Morale for himself, where he's at currently. And I think it combines the best of Tyler, these incredible, grandiose productions that we're so used to. But like, let's not forget that Sticky has like a prime '08 Lil Wayne beat behind it. Like this is giving like prime Lil Wayne energy at the same time. Yeah. So it's like, but we also are getting those lyrics that are super introspective, super current. I think that's the thing a lot of people aren't talking about. A lot of his past projects like Flower Boy and Igor, and even the latest one, it's just really about things that have already happened. Whereas this feels like this is what Tyler is currently going through. And I think this album just shows when you're able to grow with an artist, this is kind of the things that you get. Like there's no need for him to top anything, because every time he puts something out, it's completely different. It's a new wrinkle to him. We find out more about who Tyler without the mask actually is.
Can I just say, just on the note of like the contrast between songs, you know, I keep listening to Darling I because I love that song, but also it's like, it's a club banger, but then if you're listening to it, you're sort of reckoning with whether monogamy is possible or not. And like, there's something so grand about the contrast of these ideas. Rollie, it looks like you were going to say something.
Yeah, it's like a postmodern Usher song.
That's exactly what it is.
Literally what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Okay, I just can't recommend that people listen to Chromakopia enough. It's just such a great record. I appreciate you guys being here. Pablo the Don, Rollie Pemberton, you guys are the best. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Talk
Thanks.
soon. All right. Pablo the Don is a culture critic and part of Those Wrestling Girls podcast. They are in Springfield, Massachusetts. Rollie Pemberton is a rapper better known as Cadence Weapon. He's currently on tour across Canada, by the way. You can catch him tonight in Regina, and then he's on to Saskatoon, Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver. I'm Alamin Abdul Mahmoud, and this is Commotion. Okay, I want to move on to a new show that just premiered on Crave, and it brings together two queens of Canadian television.
I want to get to the end of grieving. I do, but it's all I have left of her. It's my only tether to her.
I come all this way from the great beyond to visit with my only daughter, and this is how she treats me.
And you wonder how I got cancer.
Did the rabbi really say I was a woman of valor?
I'm sorry. We asked him not to.
That is a bit of a comedy called My Dead Mom. It brings together Degrassi Next Generation star Lauren Collins and Anne of Green Gables herself, Megan Follows. They play a mother and daughter with a highly dysfunctional relationship. And that's partly due to the fact that the mom is dead. And yet she still tries to meddle in her daughter's life just as much as possible as a ghost. Teri Hart is here to talk about this. Teri, welcome to the show, friend.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. I'm happy that you're here. Listen, I described the premise of the show kind of briefly, but what else should people know about it in terms of, set it up for us?
Yeah, well, you summed it up pretty well, but I'll just take it a little bit further.
Yeah.
It is a comedy, and we heard that in the clip, but it is a comedy about grief. The Lauren Collins character lost her mom about 3 years ago, and she's really dealing with the issues, Elamine, of like how to move forward and getting some pressure from her boyfriend of like, when are you going to be over it? Like whatever that means for somebody who's going through grief. And, she had a complicated relationship with her mom, and she's just kind of working through all of it. Both Lauren and Megan, it's Megan Follows who plays the kind of overbearing mom there. They're both really fantastic in it, but they also get the sibling relationship between Lauren Collins, who plays Emmy, and her two brothers. They get it really, really right. Chandler Levac, who directed a movie called I Like Movies, that was a hit. I love Chandler, love that movie. Yeah. And she was the perfect person to direct a lot of these episodes because she's able to get that tone of comedy with really tough subject matter running, just bubbling underneath. Perfectly right. And I think that that's what the show does really, really well, is that tone.
I'm glad you brought up Chandler, because like when you watch I Like Movies, every scene is both devastating and also so funny. I need to say it keeps sort of holding that tone the entirety of the movie. And so bringing that to this show makes perfect sense. Can I just say, we've had a conversation earlier this week, and I you told me that you really enjoyed watching the show. Why do you think it worked for you?
So I just lost my dad. My dad died August 1st. And I wasn't really sure if I could, I think when you're going through grief, when you've lost somebody, you're not really sure what your emotional bandwidth is. So you can jump into something not knowing how you're going to react. Of course. And so I wasn't sure how I was going to do with this. And they just really got grief right, or at least I certainly related to my grief and what I'm going through. And this character, the grief experience for me, and I think it really is personal, but that's what great television and movies do, right? Is they illuminate the personal. And there is something absurd about grief, how encompassing it all is and the envelopment of it all. Meanwhile, we have to still go through life. Like I have to still come on Commotion and cover the film festival and have a life. And grief, I think losing somebody that you love makes you do all the things that this character of Emmy is doing in the show. Like it makes you question your choices. It makes you question your own life. It makes you question if you're doing enough for the person who you've lost. And we see all of this in My Dead Mom, but through a really lovely, comedic, easily digestible lens. And it really, really hit home for me in very, very strong ways.
We're friends outside of the confines of Commotion. We've seen each other since, and one of the sort of things that you talked about is that grief is hard and devastating, but also in certain moments it can be funny. And people don't really necessarily think about that dimension of grief very often. And then you kind of get the show that is kind of linking the comedy and the grief together. Why do you think that works? Because I think it's for a lot of people, they sort of expect grief to be a one-note thing, like a mostly sitting in the sadness thing. And then you can be kind of surprised by how the moments, the funny moments can also break through.
Yeah, I think that it ties back to what I was saying about great television and movies and really being able to see yourself in that. And, grief is, it is a lot of things. It has been very surprising to me. So when I see something that I can relate to in it, especially the comedic aspect, as you're saying, Elamine, I really am touched by it. And I think that we do a terrible, terrible job in society of talking about grief in any way. And I think that we are afraid of talking about grief with any kind of joy associated at all with it, or any kind of comedic. And, there can be a lot of joy to be expressed in one's loss of someone. There can be a lot of absurdity of comedic moments. And I think that we do, whether, this is a television show where the dead mother is visiting her daughter and talking to her daughter. I think that anybody is still talking to the person they've lost. This television show is just embodying that and really putting a visual to it. So yes, grief is absurd because it's extreme. Because when you lose somebody, you're feeling the absolute extreme of emotions. And that includes laughing out loud and crying out loud. So I'm really glad to see something that is exploring the devastation of loss with some levity.
And you don't even necessarily remember, all the only pleasant moments. I mean, the character that you get from Megan Follows here is this is a slightly feistier sort of, very meddling kind of sassier role from her that you normally sort of expect. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Jean Smart sort of hacks energy that she's bringing to this? How is Megan Follows in this role?
She's great. And you mentioned that Jean Smart connection because, Hacks is so great. And so we can draw a line there, but it is a really fair line to draw. And I think that what's thrilling to watch this, as a fan, a longtime fan of watching a lot of Canadian television, is to see both Lauren and Megan in kind of no pun intended, but a next generation. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of conversation about we have no star system. We do have a star system. Look, we have these two iconic actors, especially Megan Follows, an icon, playing something that's so different, that's so out of how we know her to be. Yeah. And she delivers it and you don't question it for a second. She's got sass, she's got spunk, she's out of pocket a lot. I mean, I'm really glad. I want to be clear that I relate to the grief in this, but I do not relate to the relationship that we're seeing here. Yeah. My dad and I, we're not this. Yeah.
That's a good note to draw for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So it's Megan Follows is fantastic, and Lauren Collins really does have to carry this emotional through line of what we're seeing in My Dead Mom, and she's never been better. It really is her moment to shine, and Megan comes in with these kind of mic drop moments that Lauren then has to manage emotionally.
One thing we haven't talked about, and I literally have 30 seconds here, but there are 7 episodes, but also the episodes are really short of this show, around 15 minutes or less, so you can binge the whole show in an hour and a half. Do you think that format works? What do you think of that format?
I don't know what the business model is for this format. Yeah. I really don't. I guess time will tell. I don't know if they're trying to put it on different platforms. But what I love about the time is that this is definitely episodic television. Yeah. You can't mush all these together and make an hour and a half movie. That's not what is happening here. Right. These are specific ideas in each episode. And what I love is that they made the content, they use the time to serve the content. They didn't make the content to serve the time. And I think that is what can be really exciting about these new platforms that we have in terms of streaming, that we can do things that are out of the box, that aren't a 22-minute sitcom. If we don't have enough to serve a 22-minute sitcom, do something that's 12 minutes, 15 minutes, like we see here in My Dead Mom.
I think that is a great place to leave it. Teri, I appreciate your time, friend. Thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Elamine.
Of course. Teri Hart is an entertainment reporter at Super Channel, and you can watch all 7 episodes of My Dead Mom right now on Crave. That is it for the show today. My name is Elamine Abdul-Mahmoud. This show is called Commotion. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to talk about Yellowstone. We're going to talk about The West Wing. I'm really excited about that conversation. I will see you then. Have a great day.